Henry Armitage pushed his cart down the tall aisles of books, stopping every once in a while to replace a selection.
Native Evergreens of the Midwest, Minneapolis. Abdo & Sons publication, circa 1896, Miskatonic Library.
His trolley pulled to one side due to a bearing that squeaked and shuddered in need of replacement.
Where do you belong?
He spoke low to himself, though the building had been empty for hours. It would remain so until early morning, gracing him a span of solitude. He paused for a beat before sliding each book into its proper position. Burial Rituals of the Amazon. Checking each volume for any wear or mistreatment, he ran his hands first over the cover and the spine, then flipped through the pages. If Henry found even the slightest dog ear or fraying, he would bring the book to his workshop to be nursed to health. With a surgeon's dexterity, he would sew and fasten with needle, thread, rubber cement, and paper, ensuring the archives remained timeless. Every book was familiar to him from cover to cover. Lost practices for the unconscious mind. Henry had read more books than any attending student. He should have his doctorate, but he was without the money to pay for the paper that would recognize his intelligence. The pile of books waiting on his lame cart promised an early night. He reached for the next friend to be brought home. Thump! His cart had stopped dead.
I knew it.
His voice was clear, the tone of a man half his age.
I should have replaced that wheel.
As he bent stiffly, he braced his back with his hands heavy on each knee to examine the wheel that had finally seized. Instead, he found a thin book wedged under the crippled cart.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there.
He apologized, as if he had bumped into a friend in the hall. The book was old, bound in leather, cracked and worn, no title and no author. Henry had found something he did not recognize. He was intrigued, but as a pragmatic worker, he placed the book on a lower shelf in the cart to be examined when he had finished. Bad wheel or not, he finished faster than ever before. Returning to his workshop with his discovery under his arm, he pushed his round glasses further up his sharp-beaked nose and sat at his workbench.
What shape you're in, old boy. Looks like you've got a case of red rot.
He started his conversation with the tome. He reached for a bottle, and from it produced a fine, pea-sized drop of cream that it began to massage into the cover with a hide rag. The leather binding absorbed the solvent and began to show some distinctive variance in the leather.
And doesn't that feel better? Let's see what secrets you have to tell.
Symbols began to appear. Symbols that Henry had never seen. 3 lines swirled out from a focal point, bent and curved and crude like question marks growing from a central flower. He worked hard at the book for the rest of the night and into the early morning. For the life of him, Henry could not find a way to reveal the faded letters that he could feel had been quilled into the damaged pages. He tried every trick. Heat, chloride and lime, sulfide and soap, ammonia, lemon juice, myriad of tin and water. Nothing worked. Frustrated, but not beaten, he kept the book on his desk, and every chance he had would bring him back to work. He would wonder what he could do to free his thoughts of the fierce curiosity that now plagued him. Weeks passed, and still Henry was pulled back to look at the book every night for hours. The library was beginning to show signs of disorganization, and books were beginning to be misplaced. The president of the university insisted that Henry take on some help, after attributing the downward turn to the age of the increasingly disheveled librarian. Henry would have enjoyed the company of the young lady who came to help if he had not been so entranced with the book. Clara was only in her late teenage years and smart as a whip, but she was eager to update the library and change the system that Henry had created. Within days, the place looked as good as before, if not better. Claire decided one day that her next challenge was to take on the workshop while Henry dozed, as he sometimes did during the late hours of the morning. A cry awoke Henry, and he ran to see what had happened. In tears, Claire had cut herself on the razor-like tools Henry had strewn across the workbench.
Well, get yourself to the infirmary,
Henry said more firmly than he intended.
I shouldn't have left the door unlocked. You shouldn't be bothering my things. My tools are sharp, though, so it should be a clean cut.
After wrapping the wound tightly, Henry directed several students who had come to see the commotion to help Claire to the hospital wing of the school. With a deep sigh, he sat in his work chair. Disregarding the sharp objects, he brushed the tools off his desk. Almost in a subconscious motion, his hands looked for the book. Panic began to wash over him. Blood had dripped onto the open pages of the ancient manuscript. Scrambling, he tried everything, but the rust-colored stain could not be removed from the pages. He closed the book, resigned that it would be forever marked, when he heard a scratching. Perhaps a rat had begun chewing his parchment. He traced the sound to be coming from inside the book, as if a nail was scratching the inside cover. Henry opened the book to see the blood was fading, even as letters began to be etched on the page.
So that's what you want for your secrets.